Yeah. We are. Now we are.
Okay, so take two. Good evening, everybody, and back with us, the Mystic and the Medium. So for everybody that knows, obviously Kate's the Mystic, and I'm Suzette, and I'm the Medium. We do this show every other week and really enjoy it. And this week we have Amanda Gibby Peters, all the way from Dallas, Texas. And she's written a book called 365 Simple Ways Feng Shui. So we've been putting it out, Feng Shui, about harmonizing, about balance. It's a Chinese philosophy. It's been around for years and years and years, and people love it, and it does make a difference. And we want your questions. She wants your questions. So welcome, Amanda. Hey.
Hello.
And for everybody here where it's cloudy, Amanda's sat in nearly 100 degrees out there, so no jealousy, please.
Yes, that's the sun just coming in the window.
Just in the afternoon, lovely. We've already got a couple of comments that have come on. Got Gemma saying hello. We've got
hello, Gemma.
Hello. So if there's anybody wants to ask some questions, but we'll start off with you, Amanda. How did you get into Feng Shui? What's your background? How did you get into doing it all?
So I will tell you the short version of that story. When we moved to this house, it was about 16 years ago, and everything physically met our needs. It, checked all the boxes, but nothing was feeling like home. It stayed a house for a couple months, and some other things in our lives were really starting to feel stressed and causing arguments. And I was having a really bad day one day and grabbed a book and just thought, whatever this book tells me is going to be the answer to all my problems. And I opened it up and it said Feng Shui. And I read this little excerpt about Feng Shui. And basically what I took from it was, if I changed my house, my life would change. And I thought it was the craziest, borderline stupid thing I'd ever heard. But it made me super curious. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to try this Feng Shui, and I'm going to prove to everyone that it doesn't work, because I knew nothing about it. I just thought it was like moving your stuff around and voila, your life changed. So I committed to a few things that the book said. And while I was trying and testing out Feng Shui, I noticed that I just started feeling better. Things started improving. And so I was compelled to keep testing it. And after about 3 or 4 months, some really big things had changed in our lives. My husband's job had changed. We had our twin daughters were 3 at the time, and they were suddenly given spots in a local preschool that had been full. Some things that I couldn't just count off as coincidence. And so sort of a few of those things happened, and I got interested in being less the skeptic and more the student. And so I started studying as much as I could, reaching out to masters and Feng Shui experts and teachers. I got certified, and here we are. That's the very shortened version, but I came to it with all the questions and a lot of doubt, and thought there's no way that this works. And here we are, and I could not be doing this today if I didn't see all the different ways that it worked for my clients, and in the very unique ways that it shows up in people's lives exactly how they need it to.
So how long ago is that then? How long have you been practicing?
It's been about 15 years.
Wow. Yeah. Well, at the same time, since I've been doing readings, actually, professionally doing them, so probably started our journeys roughly at the same time. Were you already into like spiritual awakening? Were you already into sort of the universal law of attraction, or not?
So here's what I will say. I have always been super intuitive, but I didn't really know what that was. I grew up in West Texas, which I know that probably doesn't mean a bunch there, but it was very traditional, very conservative. And I didn't really have the language for that. I just knew that I knew certain things. But I was very academic, very cerebral. And in fact, when I came into Feng Shui, I had just gotten my master's degree in communication. And so like the cerebral logical part of my brain did not want to just give in to this like woo. But I did have the intuitive sense already. And what happened in that process is I was just like anything, you know, when I came out of West Texas, I didn't really even know what a feminist was. And then I came into women's studies and it was like this whole brand new world. It was the same thing when I came into Feng Shui. It just opened my mind to a lot of different practices around energy that I had dabbled in, but I didn't really understand. And it taught me, you know, the value of not spending so much time going wide, but really picking a few things and going deep with them, really getting to know them intimately and having a relationship with them, because that is how you not only learn and digest and metabolize the wisdom, but that you can live it. And so, yeah, I would say that moment when I stepped into Feng Shui was sort of a stepping into all of those energy practices.
So it was almost as if that that process brought everything together that had ever been going on for you within that field with energy, and more or less because you were very cognitive at the time, doing your masters, it probably did help make sense to you, all the things that were woo.
Yeah.
And it gave it a name, which was Feng Shui. So it almost as if, you know, you attracted it. So if there were things that were going on.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, they always say like the teacher will appear when the student is ready. I think that all of those things were just right there waiting for me to open my eyes and you know, have a little bit more open arm policy, because it wasn't hard to take in. You know, I had dabbled in tarot. I, you know, read my astrology, but didn't really understand it. Law of attraction was still like, that was way brand new then. And so all of these things were out there, but as soon as I stepped into, okay, my house may have some influence in what's happening in my life, all of these things came into play. And it was almost like the puzzle just went together very easily. I could see how they all pull from the same source, how they all work together beautifully. And that's why I don't ever prioritize one type of Feng Shui over the other, because outside of Feng Shui, there's so many different other energy practices, and there's room for everybody at the table.
What I liked when I was looking for somebody on the Feng Shui for my own development, not for the show, but for my own, and I came across yourself, and then I came across your book and all your posts on Instagram. What I liked is that you'd had it modern. You kind of got it from the old-fashioned side of what some of the books stick to, and you'd freshened it up. And I think I messaged you and said about what is the difference between the bagua and the compass, because I was getting confused over. So I've done my house over the compass method, and then I was reading something else, and the image was on my north was the opposite, and I was like, oh, what have I done wrong? And you said it doesn't matter as long as you use one or the other, you don't cross over. And it was just a fresh modern approach that I liked. And your posts, they're really colourful and they're easy, you know, they don't sort of they're good for my sort of brain, a simple brain. They don't overwhelm you with everything.
Yeah, that's that communication background showing up. But here's the thing that really happened was, as I started studying, like anyone who's brand new to something, you find there's a lot of conflicting information, contradictory information, and most people, that's enough resistance to say I'm done. But my brain was like, no, I got to figure this out. And what I realized as I studied and certified and studied and certified was, well, there were two things. One, that all these different schools and approaches came simply from migrations and revolutions and people having different needs over the thousands of years that Feng Shui has been around. So you can't really say that one is more correct than the other, because they all came out of a need that stemmed from the original type of Feng Shui, which was form school. And then the other thing that I took in that whole, you know, process of learning, and I'm still learning, I'm always going to be a student, is that, you know, there are several paths up the same mountain. You know, there's not one Feng Shui that works better than the other. the trick is to stay in the lane of the Feng Shui school that you're practicing. And that's where people get confused because they'll read contradictory information. And it all works, but until you've really immersed yourself in the studies of it, you can't, it's really hard to cross-pollinate them and not get ambiguous results. And so I tell people, stick to the simple. And that's how Simple Shui came to be, because I noticed people were always going for the more esoteric remedies or things that they really didn't understand, or trying to make things overcomplicated. And in doing that, they were leapfrogging over a lot of the simple basics that all of the schools adhere to. And until you have your space in a way that it can be receptive to what you're doing, it doesn't matter what type of Feng Shui you're practicing, you're not going to probably see the results that you were hoping for. And so Simple Shui came to be like, let's get back to basics. Let's make sure that we're doing the simple things, because one, over time, the simple things really do make the biggest difference. And they're the things that you can return to over and over. Like, there's no expiration on them. And so my whole mission is to help people ease into Feng Shui in a very friendly way and a love-based way. I do not believe in inciting fear. I'll have no part of that. And making their home feel like it's this family member, it's this resource for them to empower themselves, because that's what I see. That is what I see when I work with clients. And that's what I even see and hear from people who read Instagram or my book, or they've taken courses. You know, when you treat your home like it's a family member, a lot of really amazing things can happen in your life.
Yeah, definitely. I think you need to love every part of your home. And if you don't, then that's the bit that needs fixing. Yeah. We've got a couple. Pauline Limpany says we use Feng Shui methods as best as we can in our household, like colors to use or to avoid, keeping areas clear, and using certain things to bring balance best we can. Paula Jackson has asked, what did you do to stabilize your new house with plants or colors or furniture?
So when you're in a new home, there are a couple things that I would tell people to do, brand new to a home. One, I would say set up your bedroom first, like make that the sort of the star of the show, because when you prioritize yourself in any space, but you know, in a home, it's your bedroom. When you prioritize yourself, you are sending that message to your home so that it reciprocates that, meaning you will be the priority as you go out into life, whether it's in relationships or jobs or networking or opportunities, right? So you want to set up the bedroom. The bedroom is all about relationship with self and others. It's about boundaries, it's self-love, it's self-care, right? And that's ultimately what your home is for, right? It's a refuge, somewhere that you can go and recalibrate. So I would say focus on the bedroom. Another thing I would say to do is to eat as many meals at home in those first few months, which people are probably doing more than usual because of the COVID climate that we're living in. But the kitchen, no matter where it is, you know, according to the map, it represents wealth and health. And so when we use the kitchen, again, we are really playing to those energies. And so it's like you're programming your home, right? Like you're programming your home to know that these are the priorities for you. And then the other thing I like to tell people to do, especially if you bought the house from someone or there were previous tenants, is to ring the doorbell every day for like a couple weeks, because that really is a way of claiming the space as your own. You know, it takes a while sometimes for a new space to you to feel like home. And so that's one of the ways that we do it.
I never heard of that, but it makes sense, because I've heard of ringing the bell and playing music. Obviously working with sage to help cleanse, but ringing the doorbell makes perfect sense, actually. There's a couple of other questions that came through earlier. What's the best way to improve relationships?
So relationships, one of the places we look first is the bedroom again. And that is to make sure that the bedroom really speaks to equality. And what I mean by that is, you know, you don't want a bedroom where the bed is shoved up against the wall, if you can help it. If you can have, you know, 2 bedside tables, 2 lamps, things don't have to be matchy-matchy, but they really need to speak to partnership and pairs and equality. That helps a ton too. in a bedroom, it's important not to have a ton of stuff shoved under the bed. That speaks to agitation. I know that some people have to store things under a bed because, you know, there's not a lot of storage space in the home. So I would say if you're one of those people, make sure that it's soft stuff and make sure that it's organized. Ideally, in a bedroom, we want energy to circulate while you're sleeping because that's when you're most vulnerable. That's when your body is recharging and refreshing and recalibrating. And so you want energy to get the best flow around you. And it's the same, you know, in terms of the relationship. And then the other area, one of the less glamorous areas on the Feng Shui map that people don't think about is skills, knowledge, self-cultivation, spirituality. It has a couple different names depending on who you follow. But that area, you know, first of all, it partners with love and relationship. But anytime you're trying to improve anything in your life, that is a good area to go into and look at and say, okay, is there anything in this space that metaphorically represents the struggle we're going through? So you will see some authors are better about emphasizing this than others, but your home is speaking to you and in very literal ways. So when things are broken in your home, it can feel like you're broke. It can feel like things are breaking in your life that you know, have no idea what's happening. If things are super saggy, you know, it can feel like you're having a hard time getting up and getting motivated. I mean, you have to look. Here's an exercise I tell people to do. Walk into a room and describe a space. Like walk into the favorite part of your house and describe it. And then walk into a space in your house that you don't love as much and describe it. And then replace the things that you were describing, the things themselves, with I am, and then keep all of the adjectives that you use to describe that. And that will give you an idea of how your house is influencing you, showing up in your life. It's either supporting you, it might be sabotaging you. But when it comes to skills and knowledge for improving a relationship, that room might have some clues for you. And certainly you can do things like add in any sort of imagery or books or anything that speaks to the relationship that you want in that space. It would work really well there.
So I've heard some people have said in the bedroom no to plants, and then other people have said yes to plants. What would you?
Yeah, so that's a fun question. So here's the thing I will tell you. Very rarely in Feng Shui is something an absolute no. A lot of times when I see the absolute no's, it's usually a magazine or an influencer, somebody who knows about this much of Feng Shui, trying to get a lot of quick likes or followers or comments. So what you have to know about plants is that they're living qi. It's energy. And the idea in a bedroom is that you want to sleep, right? You want to sleep through the night. You want to feel well rested. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with having a plant in the bedroom. But if you're having trouble sleeping, what we want to look at is, could that be giving off too much energy? This is the same thing with the mirror, because I know the mirror always comes up too. The same thing with the mirror. Is this possibly causing you to feel restless during the night? Are you maybe not sleeping well? And if that's the case, you remove it for a couple nights and run your own little test, right? But the idea with plants is that sometimes they can give off the energy that's disruptive. And then certainly you have to think of size, because when you're talking about something that's contributing energy, the bigger it is, the more energy it's giving off. And so if someone has like here in the States, the fiddle fig, they're really popular in homes right now. So if someone has one of those in the bedroom and it's a bigger one, I'm not going to say, oh my gosh, that plant needs to get out of here. I'm going to ask, like, how do you sleep at night? How's your relationship? Is there anything that makes you feel restless? Are you waking up? Maybe you did sleep, but you don't feel as well rested, or like you've got a good night's rest. Those kind of questions will come up, and then we'll determine if that does impact them or not. But as a general rule of thumb, very few Feng Shui rules are hard and absolute. It all comes down to, there's universal themes. And then when we're working with clients, it gets very nuanced and specific to them.
It seems, when you really think about it, there's a real logic behind it as well. Is when you
definitely,
the thought of you making the room yours, so the bedroom. So you said it's the first one, so clearing it and understanding the principles of Feng Shui. You're bringing that energy in yourself to actually create those spaces within that big part of the house where you spend a lot of time. So you're almost training yourself to bring those energies in and creating the space to allow that energy to happen.
Yeah.
So, that's, you know, I like that. I like it. It's simple. So I like to.
It's a very collaborative, co-creative process. That's why I say it's really important if you can see your house as a partner, as a family member, you know, treat it as such. Because the weird thing is, a lot of times when I go to clients' homes, you know, I'll maybe make a few suggestions right on the fly. I tend to like to leave a home, reflect on what I've seen, kind of let the ideas settle, and then I'll send a report. But during most consults, I'll make a few suggestions, and usually the ones that I make will be met with the client saying, oh my gosh, I've been thinking about doing that, or, oh, I was just talking to a friend about that. And what that tells me and what that confirms for me is that your house is giving you feedback. It knows what it is you're trying to create or manifest or achieve in your life, and it wants to help. It doesn't matter what space you live in. It doesn't matter what house you live in. You know, some people will be like, oh, my house is terrible feng shui, I need to move. No, you never end up where you're supposed to be by accident. There are lessons there, and therefore the path that you're on. They're there to trigger the opportunities that you need to grow into the space of who you want to become. And so when you can listen to those, you know, those nudges, those like, I kind of feel like I should take care of this, but I don't want to, like that pull, you're going to actually be working in concert with whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. But a lot of times, because we don't have the logic to back it up, we just go, oh, you know, I'm not in the mood to declutter that closet today. I'm not feeling it. I don't want to clean the kitchen, you know, and we put it off. And then someone like me comes in and, you know, it's like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about that. So your house will speak to you through your intuition.
So will it speak to you through your intuition?
Mm-hmm.
So when you walk in, so sometimes do you instinctively know where you're drawn to think, I can feel the energy almost. So let me come here first because I have this intuitive that maybe this area. So you just, you know, might not tell the client, but you kind of just say, can we have a look at this area because you have a feeling about it?
My process is, so the first thing I do is I get on a call with a client because I want them to describe their house to me before I even see it. Because so much information is translated just through the words that clients use. And I think my background in communications, having a strong appreciation for language, you know, and metaphor helps, but that gives me some really important clues. And then when we go into a house, yes, like, and, you know, I joke with people, like, I'm not always reading a home, so you can invite me to the parties. I'm not going to at what the problems are. But what will happen is I will just have questions that come to me. And very early in my practice, you know, I'd be insecure about asking these random questions because I had no idea where they were coming from. And now I just ask because something in the house is nudging me to do so. The trick for me is that I will have clients tell me what their objectives are. And so, you know, it's these very specific things that they want to accomplish, the reason that they called me in. But then there will also be things that I identify as like, this has to be taken care of. And so the challenge I have is trying to get the two to meet because people don't want to spend time on, like I said, it goes back to the basics. They don't want to hear that they've got to clear out the garage. Like, don't tell me I need to take care of the attic. Just show me how I can make some more money. You know? Or find, you know, my Mr. Right or my Mrs. Right. And so it's reading the house, letting it talk to me, and then trying to figure out how to merge what they want with what actually needs to happen. Because I understand, both from practice and study and then certainly experience, that this is the soil that is going to grow into, but not everyone wants to wade through that process. So yeah, houses always are talking to me. Yeah.
I love it. Another question was, what was the best way to attract the money?
Yeah, everyone wants that. That's the $1 million question. So I would say there are a couple things that you can do. The first thing is to make sure that your front door is visible. Make sure that you take care of that space. The front door and Feng Shui, and again, this is all schools, but it really speaks to where opportunity and luck and possibility and all the things that you want to bring into your life enter. And this is your architecturally intended front door. This isn't the door that you choose to use. This is whatever, when the builder made your house.
Like the mouth, the heart of the mouth.
Yeah, the mouth. And so any sort of TLC, any type of love that you bestow on this space is always going to make you more attractive to that auspicious energy. So it can be little things too. It could just be wiping down the hardware. It could be sweeping. I so believe in the power of sweeping. It's very metaphorical for out with the old and with the new. So take care of the front door and make that a ritual. That's not a one and done. That is something that you're constantly taking care of. The other thing that I would recommend is, bring in some of the money plants. And money plants are, any plant that has the coin shaped leaves.
Jade plants as well. I think they're called here as well.
Yeah. So, or your succulents, anything like that. So the idea with like the succulents and the craze around that is that they retain water. And in Feng Shui, water represents fortune. So when you have those things and you're taking care of them, right? So you're nurturing your abundance, you're nurturing your money. When you take care of that, it's helping to hold on to that fortune for you. The other thing I would say too is you have to address the clutter. One of the things I see people do the most is they do all the Feng Shui remedies, they buy the new things, they play up to the things that they want to do, and they ignore the clutter because, that's such a drag. Who wants to deal with that? And what you have to understand is clutter is a really low vibe energy, right? Because it's stuff that we're not using, we're not engaging with. And so its energy constantly loses wattage. But what that does is, if you think of fortune coming in like water, and then it hits all this dirt, if you can imagine just like that low energy, let's call clutter like the dirt, you basically get mud. Nothing is moving. And so I see people go through all the efforts of maybe some ritual or some remedy, and the opportunity probably is showing up, but the clutter is interrupting it. It's absorbing those efforts as whatever it is you want to show up comes in. And that shows up and manifests in very different ways. It could be a missed email that went to the spam box. It could be, you got distracted because you were late doing something and it cost you this opportunity. It could just be all sorts of different things. You got to take care of the clutter. You've got to take care of the clutter to really manifest that wealth energy.
Pauline has said, as far as the front door goes, funny, I've just had mine because I've been reading about it all over the I was going to say holiday, but the lockdown. And mine was a real tatty red door. It's in a south-facing door, and it was red, but the wood was showing through. I haven't had it painted for about 10 years, so I've just painted it. And I know I probably should have gone for red, being in the south, but I've gone for bright yellow. It's literally sunshine yellow, and the gate, and it's amazing.
It feels good.
I love it.
Yeah. So people often ask about front doors, like, what color, and they worry about compass or what's the best color. Here are the 3 suggestions I give people. First and foremost, if you have a color you love, go for that. You cannot, when you think about what you're trying to accomplish with Feng Shui, it is love, ultimately. There is a feeling that cannot be matched, right? And so you can't out-shui love. So if there's a color that you love, go for it. If you're like, I like all the colors, or I don't really know, I'm not a color person, then go for a color that looks good on you. Choose something because remember, your front door is a first impression. It is how you show up and greet the world. That is what your house is doing for you, that front door. And then if you don't know, then you can go to what compass prefers. But I really recommend people paint something that makes them light up, because every time you come to your space and you see that and you light up and you're happy, that is an energy deposit. You are actually putting energy money in the bank, if you will, because you feel so good. That's the idea. Anything in your house that's like the clutter that you're like, that is a withdrawal. That is money being pulled from the bank, right? Energy money. So as many deposits as you can get in the bank is a good thing. And if you love your space, that is, you can't beat that. That's like brilliant feng shui.
So if you have a block of flats or a front door, how best could you use that?
So in a block of flats, help me understand that. Like, is it a bunch of doors? Is that what you're asking?
Normally,
a block of
apartments. So they would go on, open the door, and you would have like a little corridor that maybe goes down the stairs to the outside, or open another door to the outside. So they actually haven't got a front door part. It just opens up into a small corridor usually, but it's like a block.
Okay, so and then there are individual doors inside that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then you maintain the space that's yours. You can only, so that's like apartments here. When people say, well, I live in an apartment, I can't sweep or I can't, do anything to my front door. What you can do is you can always, take care of your front door, wipe it down. You can do anything small that may improve the space, make it stand out. Remember, energy goes where the eye goes. So if there's something small, like maybe you can put a front door mat out, maybe you can put a little, thing of fake, flowers or something outside. I mean, everyone's door is different. Everyone, every situation is different, but if there's, you can maybe update the hardware on the door, right? Like anything that you can do to improve the space, do, because if the eye is drawn there, then that means energy is being pulled your way. If you can do nothing at all, then you really play up the inside of your front door. You take advantage of that entryway space because that still speaks to all that energy coming into your house. So make energy feel welcome the minute it hits, what's beyond the front door.
Okay. And what brings balance and harmony within the home?
I mean, a lot of things bring balance and harmony. So what I think of first is the element earth. And earth really speaks to stability and, feeling like you're on solid ground. It speaks to nurturing and nourishing and having that backup support you need. And it also, it does speak a lot to harmony. It's, everything, it's being able to give what you have, but then also to be able to receive. That's the part of earth that people miss. When you think of like a wide open field, it rains, it can soak up the rain, it can take the seed and then produce whatever, the seed is. Earth is expressed through, I hate to get color specific because then I think sometimes people run with it, but earth is any of your neutral colors. It's your yellows. It's anything that kind of has like a more muddy tone. And what I mean by that is like your olive green, maybe your brick red, some of the colors that look like they have like a little bit of brown mixed into them. But earth is also anything that's related to landscape. So like landscape art, anything that gives you a view, a wide open view. The square shape really speaks to earth. Horizontal lines speak to earth. There's a lot of different ways to bring these elements, but that's an element that sits at the center of our house. Regardless of what map you follow, they all have the same elements assigned to them. And in the middle is earth. And it is really important because that middle space in your house is the only spot that influences all the other life areas around it. It's the only one that touches all of them. So again, coming back to balance and harmony, I tell people, pay attention to what's happening at the middle of your house, because this is a space that's exuding a lot of influence over all the other areas of your life. And so it's not a place to neglect or forget. And then I would say, be mindful of what you invite into your home. So, harmony comes from whatever we're doing in our space. And if we're letting in a lot of media or gossip or, we're not taking care of our things, we're letting things build up, we're not cleaning our home regularly, or we're not, we're trying to ignore certain problems, all of that are going to compete energetically. And when you're trying to create harmony, you need the energy to be cooperative, right? And so those little things make a big difference. And it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. It's the little things done with consistency that are going to give you the biggest results over the long haul.
Do you use crystals?
Oh, yeah. I love crystals, but not a ton of them. I'm not, I feel like, so a couple of years ago, I studied with a shaman for a year. And one of the things I learned was to not hoard. The earth medicine is what it was, what we refer to those things, sage, crystals, anything that we take from the earth, and to get to really know those things. Like, so say I have big rose quartz, really get to know the properties of rose quartz and what it does, like have that intimate relationship, understand it, not just like, oh, I need it for this and then move on. And then also understanding that it's just like your house. Like if you're not engaging with your tools regularly, then their energy kind of loses some of that wattage. So you don't want to be a collector or a hoarder. You want to make sure that they're actually, you're working with them in a way that's respectful and in a way that's consistent. It doesn't have to be every day, but you don't want like the dusty altar, if you will. And so, yeah, I do love crystals. I have a few, and I try to, like when I stumble into a space that has a lot of that stuff, to say, okay, I can have one thing.
What's the most interesting space that you've been asked to come along and look at and give a report on?
I've had some really interesting clients, but I will tell you, my very very first client was a woman whose fiance had burned her house down with the intention of killing her.
Wow.
And she called me and she wanted to rebuild. Like it was, I showed up and it was just foundation. It was just foundation. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is my first client. And I thought about, calling one of my teachers and handing it off. And instead what I did was I hired one of my teachers to mentor me. I said, there's no way I could possibly do this on my own, but I want to learn as much as I can because this is a huge moment. Like there's so many lessons here. And so, I learned a lot of things in that process. I learned how to reestablish peace between the earth and the physical space, which was her house that was going to be rebuilt. I learned how to, rebuild a space so that it was favorable for her. I will tell you, she now is the owner of 3 huge hair salons here, and she's about to franchise. So, that was like, forever ago when I first started Feng Shui after certification. So probably like 12 years ago. But anyway, she's hugely successful today. We did a lot of really cool things in her house, very specific to her. And it's been amazing to look back and see how it has supported her as she's moved forward and been kept safe, because there were a couple times where her fiance was let out on parole, her ex-fiance, I should say, was let out on parole. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hope some of the protective cures we did hold up, because you don't know. And they did, and really validating ways. And so I would say that to this day is still one of those, like, wow, I can't believe that was my first client. And I can't believe all the different ways that we were able to apply Feng Shui for her.
Amazing. So do you work with the the compass when you do normally, or do you have, is it called the bagua?
Yeah, the bagua. So here's what I tell people, like as Feng Shui practitioners, I mean, I guess some people really hold to the map, but I find that the Feng Shui map is something that when you are stepping into Feng Shui, when you're new to Feng Shui, it is the easiest thing to perceive and practice on your own. And so it's why so many people who know this much about Feng Shui are really familiar with the Feng Shui map, because like me, that was the first thing that I practiced from. all these years later, what I know now is like, yes, that matters, but you have to really pay attention to the energy around a house. You have to pay attention to the energy in the house. You have to pay attention to what's happening elementally. You know, is there a good yin yang balance? You know, what are the things saying about the people? Are all the personalities represented in the home? What are the objectives and goals? And a lot of that needs to be answered before you even start dialing down into the different life areas. The life areas can come into play, but it's not you have money issues, let's dial up your wealth, or let's work with helpful people, or let's take care of family. You know, it's so much more involved than that.
Yeah, it's a real, as you said before, collaborative. So not only are the process is it collaborative, but also everybody that's within that as well is identified and taken into consideration. So it's quite so when I would imagine, so when there's a report done, this is quite a few pages of literature that you have to develop for clients. This isn't just a move this, do this, paint that this colour and do that. There's a real wealth of information that you're needing there, isn't there?
Those reports are usually about 20 plus pages, because I do still walk people through all the life areas, because that is where most people are at. But there's a lot of teaching. You know, I learned early on that I could say, do this, do this, do this, and had a short report. And inevitably I was going to get all the emails. Well, what does this mean? Well, why do I have to do this? You know, so I was still doing the same amount of work, but it was just then via email. And it was a little more disruptive. So the report is very comprehensive. And I like to give people enough information that they can work with it for at least 6 months to a year. You know, all of our circumstances and life objectives and everything change. And so it's not a one and done with Feng Shui, but I like to give people enough road that they don't feel like they have to come right back to it. And it keeps them in the process of, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to sit back and see what happens and then do a little more. And the reason that is important, when I would give people like the do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, what I also learned was that there's a tendency out there to just check it all off the list and be like, I did it, nothing's happening. And when you're working with your space, you are changing your energy too. And you've got to give your energy a second to catch up. And so the way that I approach giving Feng Shui suggestions and advice is choose 1 to 2 things, whether you're reading my Instagram or you're getting the newsletter or you've had a consult. Choose 1 to 2 things that resonate with you and do those things, and give your energy a second to catch up and to improve, because you have the strongest influence in your space. Your personal chi is the biggest influencer. And so every time your energy improves, whatever ritual or remedy you're applying gets a little better too. And you cannot overlook that. You cannot look at Feng Shui as a shortcut or as a thing that's going to save you. And in fact, if that's what you use it for, it's going to trigger opportunities that you're going to think is bad luck. That is just saying, hey, we need to clean up your frequency. You got a few things you need to take care of, and then we can get where you want to go. And so it's better to take your time. The other thing too that I found is when people do all of the things at once, is that it can sometimes generate more change than they're ready for. And then it totally defeats the purpose of trying to get where you want to go, because you're overwhelmed and you do nothing. And so I like to give it in like, here's everything that you can do based on the objectives you gave me. And this should last you 6 months to a year.
So when you said there about, you know, when people try and do everything at once, would that mean then that the energy changes are happening too quick and almost maybe conflicting with each other because there's not been that time for it to settle and flow? It's all very quick. Everything's changed and there's not that flow that's happening because everything changed overnight, and then it's very almost it's responsive, isn't it? They've done a responsive thing instead of just feeling it and going with it.
Yeah, well, yes, that, and I think when people do everything, it really suggests that they don't trust the process, that there's a desperation to it.
Mhm.
And so that gets mixed in, and it's really hard to tell people after the fact, well, that's kind of a desperate move, because of course you're going to be offended, but you want to try a few things, and really it's to your benefit to do a few things. Listen, if you wanted to go in your bedroom and make a bunch of changes over the weekend, like we're going to clean the bedroom, we're going to clean out under the bed, we're going to get the bedside tables, we're going to, change the bedding, anything like that, that would be fine. But it's when people take the whole list and try to do everything, when you work from that space of desperation, it really suggests that you don't trust the feng shui. And I will say this, everyone thinks that they're ready for change, but then when it really comes knocking, people aren't ready to do the work. Not all change is, feels good. And so you want to do it slowly. And the benefit to that is as you work through this process and it validates itself, you learn, oh, this worked. And you can come back to that at another time in your life and use it again, but with confidence because you saw what it did. When you rush through a bunch of things, you don't know what worked and what didn't. And so it's also a way of really, like I said, digesting and metabolizing what you're doing so that it becomes a way of life, a practice for you, well beyond just the time frame that we're working together.
Cheryl has asked, said, I come from a large boxing family and I have a fantastic canvas of my brother boxing in 1972 Olympic Games. I have it in my hallway. Where would be the best place to hang this canvas, please?
Gosh, well, so you could hang it in your family, new beginnings, ancestors area. If you wanted to, you could hang it in, the helpful people area. Family and ancestors is east. Your helpful people area is northwest if you do compass. But, what I would say, this is a really good example. I can answer this universally and tell you what I think just based on the question, but I'm guessing if Cheryl and I were having a conversation, I would learn a little bit more about her brother and what this means to the family, and I would know then where to put it. The house would have a specific space that it's this is where it needs to be, because there are a lot of different places it could work, but just going off of that little bit, those were the two places I'd say are fantastic to hang it.
So the east is family.
Mm-hmm.
The east is the family, and the northwest, did you say, was helpful people?
Helpful people, travel. Mm-hmm. And it also relates to, it has the most yang energy. So in Feng Shui, that's considered, more masculine energy, not necessarily male, but just more masculine. It relates to heaven, like creative heaven, and the cosmos and that kind of stuff. And it also really speaks to head, male household, like the head of the household, male energy. And so, when it comes to, male energy, sometimes that's a really great place to put that stuff. And I'm guessing, this means a lot to her. And so this, it's that helpful energy, that eye looking over you, that cosmic, source, different reasons for hanging it there. But again, if we were having a conversation, I might have a completely different answer based on what she was saying.
My northwest, downstairs is my kitchen and upstairs is my toilet.
Listen, so everyone freaks out about where their bathroom is, oh my gosh, my love relationship area's room because that's where my bathroom is. Those things aren't true. Bathrooms today, remember, Feng Shui is thousands of years old. Bathrooms today are sanctuaries. They're, they're so, they're staples in our lives. They're so necessary. And so I would never worry about where something is according to the map. I would just, again, this goes back to, what is the energy in that space? How is it being cared for? Does it cater to you? Do you feel good when you walk in that space? This is a bathroom is where we take care of ourselves. So it should feel a little luxurious, if it's where you get ready for the day, if it's where you end the day. And so those are the conversations we're having, not, oh my gosh, well, what are we going to do to fix where it sits? Because you don't. Every house has a different layout. There is no such thing as a perfect Feng Shui house. And so you just work with what you have.
Sue Garner has said, once you have your house flat right, do you have to change it on a regular basis to keep the rooms positive?
So that's a great question. So here's the thing. Yes, because you are not the same person today that you were 5 years ago. And hopefully if you're, living right, you're not the same person 5 years from now that you are today. Your spaces want to be reflective of who you're becoming and what brings you joy. And it is okay. You have permission to outgrow things. I always say this, like, you will have things in your life that were so sacred and had so much meaning to you at one point, and you outgrow them, and that is healthy. And it's okay to pass things on and to let things go. It's okay to change your mind about things. Sometimes I go into homes, I have a lot of perfectionists who love Feng Shui, and so they have the perfectly staged home and nothing ever moves, and that's actually not good Feng Shui either. Creativity lives in the chaos. So I talk about the creativity and the order as the inhale and the exhale. You cannot have one without the other. You need both. And so your houses should change. And in fact, when you get to a point in your life where you're like, nothing's changing, I'm so bored, I feel stuck, I don't know what to do anymore, I will tell people, go into a room and move 27 things. Mm-hmm. Your perspective. And when people say, I don't believe that will work, I say, go into your kitchen and move your silverware around. Move all the kitchen drawers around. And I promise you're going to see how on autopilot you live, because your instinct is going to be to go back to the same spaces where things were. And it wakes you up. The same thing happens in your house when you move furniture around, when you move books around, when you move, plants around. Like, have fun in your space and let it speak to who you're becoming.
We tried in my group, we did the move 27 things. Yeah. And initially you think, how can I move 27 things? But actually it's so easy. Yeah. And the amount of people that said it made such a difference. It's
crazy. And it goes back to, like, how is the energy working in your space? So when you translate Feng Shui, it means wind, water. And you want wind and water. You don't want either one too strong, right? Because they can both be very damaging, but you don't want there to be no wind or water, right? Because that's stagnant, that's death. And so it's this really gentle flow that you're trying to create through your space. And by moving things around, you're encouraging that flow to take new patterns. And when that happens, you can't help but be impacted by it. It's funny. One of the examples I give here in the States is it's very common for students when they have a big project coming up to, like, oh, put it off. Well, now I've got to clean my desk before I can get started. Right. And it's that moving around to make room really for creativity to reach them. Right. It doesn't surprise me that that's such a ritual, procrastination ritual, but a ritual nonetheless, to need to clean the workspace before they can actually get to the project. And it's the same thing in our homes. Like, if you want to do something different, create the space, move things around, change the way you're seeing things, and it will affect you.
Yeah. Just as you said that, I've not long finished a few years of study, and some of my last assignments were quite big ones, and I would do that. I would have to clear everything from my desk and then just take a breath and look at what I needed, and then myself settle back down to let it. And we'd say, oh, that's, you're procrastinating again, go and clear out some cupboards and go and do this. But again, I guess it's like stimulating a little ritual. And and allowing yourself to come back to that with some new clear energy.
Yeah, horizontal spaces, just FYI. So like the counter space in a kitchen or a bathroom or your desk, that all represents creativity. If you kind of go back to that earth energy of being receptive, right? Of like the rain coming and being able to take that in. Your creative space needs somewhere for the muses to land, for the inspiration to land. And so, when people are like, I just don't feel creative, or I just don't feel motivated to start on this project, or, different things that come up, I'm like, go clear the spaces. Like, leave out what you need, but find a home for everything else, because all of that noise is distracting you. It's competing for your attention. And when you clear the space, it's amazing. Again, it comes back to that inhale, exhale of how it changes the way you can show up to that project.
Yeah, no, definitely. I need to do a bit of that. I've got a big space to do.
I'm looking at my room thinking, God, last week it was tidy, but now I've been back at work a few days. It's not, and this is the centre of my home. And there's an ironing pile there, and it needs sorting. But I have done so much over these last couple of weeks, and it really with the intention of being able to go into every single room and be like, I love this room.
Yeah.
I love it. That's what I wanted to get after reading all about it. Not just, oh, that'll do, or that annoys me, and the garden as well. Do you take your Feng Shui out into the garden as well, Amanda?
I take it everywhere. I mean, I'm not like, I think that everyone has a different idea of what Feng Shui is, but for me, like when I go outside, it's really being mindful of what's thriving, not letting things struggle, like being real. Like, is this something I can rehab if it's a plant? If not, I need to let it go. It's about taking care of the space. I find a lot of times people want to bring things in, right? Plant new things and have all the pretties. And maybe some of the tending and the pruning don't rate high on the list. And it's that kind of stuff too. It's always, the way that the outside was explained to me when I was studying Feng Shui, my first teacher said, think of your house like the jewel, but then everything around it as the ring setting, right? And so you need that to hold the jewel, right? So yeah, when I go outside, I'm sweeping regularly. I am pruning gardens. I am, cleaning up dead foliage and leaves. I'm pulling things that aren't doing well. Like, it is a constant process. And people go, well, I don't have the time for that. Here's the thing. If you agree to the space that you're in, you agree to be responsible for it. And so no excuses. No excuses. That's just it. And it's important to know that so that you're more mindful as you bring things home with you. Like, do I want to be accountable for this? Am I ready to, to keep up with the upkeep and the responsibility of what this thing in my life is going to bring? And it's a good filter. It's a good filter for making decisions.
Paula Jackson has said, how soon after changing things around can you expect to notice the improvements?
I find it's different for everybody. I've had people, I've gone to Sage or Smudge, places that have, a few problematic employees, and the employees leave at the end of the day. Like, just, bam. And I'm like, wow, I mean, I know that what I do works, but I'm just as surprised as the next person sometimes, like, wow. And then I know sometimes it feels like nothing is happening. And then I'll have a client call and it'll be like 3 months and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how all of these different things that I didn't understand led to this. Like, this is really great, whatever that thing is that they're calling me about. So it just depends on what the objective is, what you're moving, and then also being mindful of your own actions, like what you're doing to contribute. Like I said, a lot of times on the socials, I'll get messages and people will be like, I did this and this and this, in my space, and nothing happened. And I'm like, okay, well, what are you doing? Because what I do know for sure is that Feng Shui will trigger opportunities, but you cannot negotiate with those opportunities. You have to say yes when the assignments knock on your door, and you have to be willing to do the work. And sometimes it looks fun, and sometimes you want to say, no, thanks, I'll take a pass. You can't. You've got to trust the process. And I find that that's a place that some people get snagged. So it all depends on, those factors.
It's definitely something. I mean, over here, I don't know how long your course was, but it's quite an in-depth course here. And there's different levels to it, and it's very, very expensive over here. I did look in this last couple of months, very, very expensive. But I now know what it is. It's definitely something I want to do, and I will go down that road. And Suzette and I spoke before, and it's something that we've both followed for many, many years and put into practice without thinking about it, because we've read about it for so long. It's kind of ingrained. But a lot of it is the old school way. And from the book that Suzette's got there, I've got that as well. But your book, which I wanted to definitely, a few people have asked, your book, I mean, it's great because you've got every day it's got a different tip on it. So it's very, very different to all the other Feng Shui books I've ever come across. It doesn't tell you to move your bed this way, put your pillow that way, put a water feature this end. It's nothing like that. It's all tips, which is so different. And it supports the other sort of style of Feng Shui things. Guys, those that have asked, I will put a link onto the page. I got this I think I got it from Amazon actually, but it is on your website as well. But I think I got it from Amazon, and it's it's great.
It's great so much. No, and I love the tips, because what I really want people to take away from this is that it is just regular common sense. And when you combine that with your intention and you're mindful, it changes. It changes how you feel in your space, which changes how you show up in the world. And all of those have an influence on our decisions and outcomes. And so, it doesn't have to be these big things. You don't have to worry about all, you can go as far into Feng Shui and you can get as complicated as you want.
Yeah.
And you also can keep it simple and it be effective, and so I don't want people to feel the resistance and give up. I want this to be something that feels fun and encouraging and motivating, because listen, at the end of the day, we're all these energy bubbles. And if we're radiating positive energy, it helps everyone. And so, I appreciate the more complicated approaches, and I'm certainly here for them, if that's how a client wants to work. But the simplicity is really powerful and oftentimes overlooked. And so that's why I love the tips, because it's very friendly.
Yeah, definitely. Do you ever get picked to do, like, I watch, and I love reality shows. I love all them. And I'm really loving Selling Sunset. But have you ever seen Selling Sunset?
I've heard of it, but I have not watched it, no.
Oh, I love it. So it's a real estate program, and multi-millionaire pound properties, and they're selling them to all the celebrities. But they get somebody to go in, so they're just a blank canvas, and then they get someone to go in to dress it up, ready for the viewing. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh my God, there's no way they should have that there, and that's a sharp edge. They should have put a plant over that. And I'm saying to my partner, they should have a Feng Shui expert going into these places, the real estate, before they even get to be sold. That would be amazing. That's what I would want when I first bought a house.
Yeah, I think it would be really smart too. It's funny. I've actually talked to more TV networks this year than I ever have, but there's still sort of a hesitation. And I think it's just because people hear Feng Shui and it's not mainstream enough yet. People still have really rigid ideas attached to it. So I can say I've talked to people about shows. I've had people say, we want to pitch you, but we would rather you talk about design instead of calling it Feng Shui. And so it's an interesting thing. I think Feng Shui it's at a tipping point, especially with COVID. People are starting to realize my house matters. It definitely is affecting my mood. What can I do to feel better? And so I think it'll eventually happen where you see it on TV, because I think it's deserving of the conversation. It is a resource that is empowering. It makes people feel good. It combines intention with action, which is, that's the winning combo. I think it's close. I think it's around the corner.
I think reality show on it, like, you've got a couple have all these problems, and then you've got a Feng Shui expert going in, and then they revamp it. Oh, I think it would be an amazing program.
I do too. I was just having a conversation with a network yesterday about that, about relationship specific, like how Feng Shui could help so much. And it's really subtle things. It's not doing a complete renovation. It's very subtle things that I think the simplicity makes people think it won't be effective. And yet I'm like, that's where it's at every time. It's the simple.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm glad that we grabbed you first before you become a mega famous light, and then we don't get a chance to grab you. We've just got a couple of others before we kind of finish it there. Oh, somebody's asked if I'll get some of the books in my shop. Yeah, I can definitely get a few books in the shop. Cheryl has said, I have a piece, Lily, so have I, on the kitchen window. I keep moving it as it's near the sink. I don't want my piece going down the sink. So
that's actually, let's look at that differently. So you're just looking at the elements there, and your sink represents water. And so, the water's going down the drain. Some people freak out about that stuff, but really what your plan is it's the element wood. And so when people worry about bathrooms, this is a really great tip. When people worry about bathrooms and they hear like, oh my gosh, all my money's going down the drains, and my wealth is ruined, whatever, you look at the creative cycle of the elements. And the element that drains water and lifts it up is wood. Think of a tree, right? It requires water to grow, and it comes up and it sprouts out and it branches and all new things happen, right? And so actually you're in a very beautiful elemental sort of harmonious relationship with the plant by the sink. It's a good place for it.
Oh,
Lovely. What she's put there? Put one. But okay, that's just about the book. Yeah, I can put a book for you. And if something else is a jade plant, a money plant. Yes, it's the same.
Yep.
Same thing here. Wow, it's absolutely fascinating, and I could just talk and show you pictures of our own house. In fact, I could take you round now if I could, but I won't. But yeah, absolutely lovely. So, Amanda, how can people get a hold of you? I mean, you do obviously here in the UK, you can't come and visit to do a house look.
I do virtual consults mostly, and so that's something that's always an option out there. You know, we meet Skype, Zoom, whatever, and you walk your house and I take notes. It's actually a pretty seamless process, and I've been doing it long enough now that I'm really confident with it. But I would say Instagram is where I probably give the most information. I will toot my own horn and say I'm incredibly generous with the information. Yeah. So scroll, read. There's so much there.
You do live, don't you, there as well?
Yeah, I do. I was doing it every Tuesday. Now it's about every other Tuesday. But I do hop on live and I answer questions that have come in through the DMs, and then I leave it open a couple minutes at the end for people to ask questions. And so that's another great way to get your question answered, or just to pick up. Here's the thing. You know, when you show up to these things, a lot of times you think, well, this question doesn't apply to me. This is how you learn Feng Shui. You pay attention to everything that doesn't apply to you because you don't know where your life's going to go. You don't know when that tool is going to become useful. So you take it to put in your toolbox. And there's just so much learning that happens in a collaborative setting. So I would say anytime I'm on live, that's a great place to be, because they're just conversations that come up that I don't even know are going to come up. And it's just a great way for people to learn Feng Shui, you know, in a real-time way, you know, not through the lens of a specific problem, but just everything that Feng Shui can be and really is. And then my site, always visit my site because there's information there too. But those are the places to find me.
And you have a newsletter as well, did you say?
I'm sorry, what?
You can sign up for your newsletter.
Yes, definitely sign up for the newsletter. That drops every Thursday. And, you know, it's just more Feng Shui advice. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for 15 years and I've written and been featured so many places. And it's just like the information, there's so much, like whether it's Instagram or my site or you sign up for the newsletter, it's just resource rich.
And a couple of people have said they're going to be busy now cleaning. Yep. Paula's going to be cleaning her white front door tomorrow. Honestly, I had mine totally done. Somebody else said they've got loads to do, loads of decluttering. They're all going to be busy rearranging all their houses and tidying everything. So, Amanda, it's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. We've worked out today, I'm not very technically minded, but I've worked out how to get the videos up onto Instagram. So this video will go up, and I'll tag you in it, Amanda.
Thank you. I'll share it on my IGTV if I can, if it lets me. Sometimes those crossovers are difficult.
That's it. I got somebody to do it for me today. So if it goes over, it'd be great. If not, I'll still tag you in it anyway. And usually we get lots of people watching this after the event as well. So I'm sure there'll be other questions, and if they want to message you direct, DM you on your Instagram page. But it's been really, really lovely to meet you, to talk to you. Yeah. And I'm going to continue stalking you, as I'm sure Suzette will probably do as well. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun. I love these conversations, and I love the free flow of questions. So this has been like the perfect way to spend the afternoon. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Our next show is in 2 weeks' time, and we don't have a guest. We've decided that Suzette and I will do our own show for you as the Mystic and the Medium, where we haven't been able to get out to venues and do our demonstrations. We're going to bring you a Facebook demonstration of mediumship and psychic work as well. So that's going to be your next show in 2 weeks' time. But obviously, keep following the page, and you'll see all the details coming soon. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Stay safe.
Okay. Bye, everyone.